Hey guys, it's Derek here with On the Horizon. Welcome to this week. We are in the middle of predator season, so I've got a special guest here with you. We're going to be talking to DC predators today. I've got Ken and Scott, and we're going to talk real time predator hunting. Guys, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Yeah, we
Thanks,
appreciate
Derek.
the invite. It's always fun to talk about coyotes and any opportunity to get together with my brother, I say is a good one. So thanks for the invite.
Awesome. Now, I have to start
Yeah.
out. If you guys have not seen them, be sure and check out DC Predators on Instagram. You guys have honestly, man, have got some of the best predator content that I've seen in a really long time.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
that means a lot because there's some good stuff out there, but we try really hard to make it as high quality as we can. And not everything that we record makes it to the internet. We got high standards, especially Cameron, who does all the video and editing.
So before we jump into the kind of how, and I want to talk a little bit today, some predator techniques you guys are using. I want to talk a little bit about the camera setups and how you're getting some of this quality stuff and some of the data, around that. But let's start with, tell us a little bit about you guys for the listeners, as well as why DC Predators? Where does that come from?
Yeah. Ken, you want to bat lead off?
Yeah, sure. We started, my first predator hunting experiences were with my dad when I was pretty young. Scott probably came along on some of those because Scott and I are brothers, but he's a few years younger than me. But I caught the bug early on. Just didn't have a ton of opportunities until later in life. The three of us, Scott and his son Cameron and I, went on our first hunt together, probably early 2000s,
Okay.
I think, and we got our first coyote together as a trio, and then it's just been ramping up since then. Cameron got into the video and editing, and that was an interest of his, and he has excelled at it. And so, because of that, we're able to share a lot of our experience with other people. DC Predator is kind of funny how we came up with the name, but we like to shoot suppressed all the time, so trying to keep it quiet. But so we like to joke that the loudest noise is that sound of impact when you hit a coyote. We call that the death clap. So that's what DC stands for.
Oh, that's awesome. You should put some merch around that.
We actually, it's funny you say that. So we kept it somewhat of like, I don't want to say a secret, but I didn't know how it would be received in the community. We really do strive to put out content that's authentic and real, but to try to keep it a little bit classy. And for us, that was a business decision, knowing that a lot of people were going to want to partner with us to promote their products. And we didn't know how some brands would feel about something that's, quite savage in nature, like Death Clap. But it really was the best way to describe it. And so for me, that kind of came up early. We were sitting in a stand, and I was in a position where I couldn't see the action, and I just heard the round crack off, and the sound was just amazing. And so after that, it didn't matter. You didn't have to look. Once that sound hits, you're like, oh man, the adrenaline dump happens. And so we did. I've thought about some merch over the years about that, but I don't know. I got a little nervous thinking, what if someone thinks that's just a little bit,
That's
I don't know,
true.
pushing the limits? So,
There's
anyways,
definitely those guys out there for sure.
yeah,
But now I have to ask because, like I said, I've kind of through my career, I've done some, filming and TV shows, and I've been with some guys on the predator side. Like I don't know that I can stress to the listeners how hard it is to get coyote hunting on film.
yeah,
I have to just know, like last night, like I said, I took a deep dive in the Instagram. There's some of the most incredible, like high quality slow mo stuff. How many hunts are you going on per coyote, right? And then I'm going to also say, what's your hit rate between coyotes called in to amazing video? I think we need to give some scope to, what the attrition rate on this is.
that's a good, I'm embarrassed. This is odd for me. I love numbers. So much of what we do is driven by data. I don't think we've ever tracked how many awesome coyote kills happen that don't make it to the general public. So I'm going to have to add a new layer to our spreadsheet. But if I had to shoot from the hip, I would say that that number is shrinking, meaning the amount of attrition or wasted content is shrinking, because as a crew, we've gotten better at it. If I had to guess now, I would say we're probably posting 70 to 75% of the coyotes we kill.
Yeah.
I would say this, uh, the majority of that really amazing content, you'll notice the shooters are probably me and Ken, and that's because Cameron's probably running the camera. So, as fun as it is for me to say, hey, I shot a double or a triple, the day that I actually capture awesome content, I'm like level 10 proud of that more than like stacking a bunch of coyotes because to your point, it is very difficult to have action going on and you're locked in on this little camera and you're following and sometimes calling out instructions to the shooters. And so, yeah, it's really tricky, but I don't know, Ken, what do you think as a percentage, how much of it makes it to the internet?
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good guess. That's 75. The problem is a lot of times we can't all get together. Last weekend, Cam and Scott were on a javelina hunt, Cam's brother. And I didn't go on that because they left Thursday and I was working. Still needed to hunt. I can't get enough. If I go a Saturday without doing it, I start having problems going through withdrawal. So I went without him with a friend of mine, and that particular weekend we got blanked in that too. But what the point I'm making is sometimes we don't get it on film just because we didn't even have the camera there, whether it's a thing like that, or just the fact that, man, we just want to go out hunt coyotes for the fun of it. Sometimes we make that a decision. We just say, all right, we're just killing. We're
Yeah, I
doing it for the
know, but
joy of
at the same time, like, it bites me every time. I'm like, "I'm not gonna take a
yeah.
camera, I'm just gonna go have fun," and that is the time when you're like, "I wish I had that on camera." That would have been, like, sick content.
Funny you say that. And here's a softball for you. On that javelina hunt, so we as a crew did not get blanked last weekend. So on that same javelina hunt, uh, we got to a slow point. We were a little frustrated. So we went back to what we know. We threw the lucky duck out, and lo and behold, here comes charging in a big old male coyote. And my 14-year-old punched a hole through him with a 22 Creedmoor.
Oh,
You ever heard of
yes,
that?
go, let's go. Oh,
Was that too much of a softball
no,
for you? But
that
yeah.
was wonderful, man. Is there other Predator cartridges? I mean, at this point, if you're serious, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
now you
You could make a good argument that that could be the ultimate predator card right now. No other people have made good arguments for others, and
100%.
that's a front.
Well, what's crazy is I don't think people didn't buy into it early, and you're seeing more and more people get convinced. And man, we're seeing some of the numbers, not just for us, but for the industry in terms of just volume of ammunition in that cartridge. It's pretty serious right now. So I think it's been a fun thing to watch. But going back, you mentioned something you like data. So what does that mean for a predator hunter? Are you like, no, I'm keeping moon charts and that kind of data, percentages
Yeah.
by call? Like, what are we talking here?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question. When we first got started, we knew um, that there was just so much to digest and learn, and we wanted to get really, really good. So as a crew, we sat down to kind of decide, hey, are we going to get serious about this, or are we going to just go and goof off on the weekends? And we felt like,
Both are great answers, right?
yes,
Right.
yes, we felt like there were some opportunities to get in and make some noise in a market that I think is emerging, right? And so we decided if we're going to do it, we're going to approach it very scientifically and we're going to go full force. And that really, as you get to know us, is just part of the DNA of who we are. And so we started tracking everything we could in terms of conditions, what we were using to call, how many coyotes came in, how many did we kill, how many did we leave on the table and we got to go back and get, how long did we run the call, were we running prey, were we running vocals, what were we doing? And so we developed what I would say is just a rough spreadsheet out the gate that we've built on over time. And I believe, this is going to sound a little proud, but I believe it allowed us to accelerate the learning curve exponentially. And so we put all that data in before we go out. We look at the data to say, hey, the last 2 years, February's been slow. We've been running these types of sounds. Should we change it up, or is this just a function of the cycle of coyotes? And
Mm.
so we ask those types of probing questions. And then what we do as a crew, because we're all so close, we're all family, we can be really open and honest with one another, and we do an assessment at the end of the hunt. On the way back, we talk about what worked, what we did well, and maybe some areas we need to get better, and we log that data. And so I feel like when we first started going out, if we saw or heard a coyote one in every 3 or 4 trips, like that was enough of a dopamine hit for me to keep going. And now it's crazy because Ken said a minute ago, "Oh my gosh, we went out on a Saturday and we didn't kill any coyotes." Guess what? That's reality
Oh
for
yeah.
most people. But I feel like if you take note of the data and use the data and get better at your craft, anybody, and I mean anybody, can get to the point where more often than not, they're having success predator hunting with one condition in there. That is that you're in an area with coyotes, right? I understand there are some guys that live in areas where there's just the coyote populations are low, but if you get in most states and you do your homework, I think you can find the coyotes, and I think you can bump your success numbers up significantly.
All right, so I want to ask a question. I'm telling myself a little bit, and then I want to ask a question, kind of along that data, and then taking maybe I can get you to give some recommendations here. But from the guy who like loves predator hunting, the whole 22 Creedmoor deal. I've got two boys, myself a 13 and a 6, and into hunting, right? So my 13-year-old has done a lot of big game hunting for his age, and he really is trying to get bobcat and coyote, which is like, I'm like, oh yeah, no problem. I can't tell you here recently how many times I've taken him out and we have just been blanked every time here recently. And it's like starting to get to me where I'm like, something's wrong with the call. I don't know. My wife's starting to make fun of me. She's like, you're like the coyote guy. My son's like, Dad, these things don't exist. And so we went out last week and I'm like, oh, I know this is a sure deal. Nothing. And so
Mm.
hit me up. You talk about February. So hit me up with right now what's your go-to call. You mentioned Lucky Duck. I've not used that. I've had Fox Pros and those kind of things. I see a lot of good stuff on Lucky Duck. So tell me what's your sequence right now.
That's a Ken question.
I can.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people change it up dramatically depending on the season or the time of year, I guess you'd say. And I don't know if it's just an Arizona thing or what, but it doesn't matter what time of year, most of our success has been off of prey distress. And when I say prey distress, 99% of the time that's rabbit. When we'll get them sometimes on woodpecker or something like that. That's just what has worked for us. We've experimented with other things. Most of the time, my standard sequence, and mostly I'm usually running the call because Cam's on the camera, and I just have the most familiarity with working the call. So I'll usually play maybe 2 to 3 different prey distress sounds to start a stand, and I might do 3 minutes on a sound. Um, Depending on the situation, I might start a little quiet. Usually, I'm working up to pretty high volume because if there's not something really close that's coming in, then I need to put the sound out farther to get to more coyotes. So I'll play 2 to 3 different rabbit sounds for like 3 minutes, maybe 2.5 or 2 minutes, depending on the situation. And if we haven't seen anything by then I start thinking about, well, maybe I'll switch up and do a rodent or a bird or something like that. And then usually the end of our sequence is where we get into maybe a coyote fight or something like that. We've had success late in stands with that. Very rarely for us have we called in a coyote using howl. And so, like I said, it could be a regional thing. Not like I'm doing it by hand, so I can't blame it on my poor hand calling. It's all electronic. So that's what's working best for us.
So you mentioned
Can,
two.
can I jump in there?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I and I want to answer this delicately because I want to make sure that I don't devalue someone who's really good on the call, because that absolutely increases your odds. And I want to be careful that I don't make any assumptions about what people are doing going in and out of a stand. But I believe that your success depends a lot more on your approach and a lot less on a specific sound. I feel like, and I used to be this guy, a lot of people coming in say, oh, well, once I find the magic call that this guy uses or that guy uses, I'm going to kill as many coyotes as they do. And while calls absolutely matter, you can have all the best calls and still not be successful if you don't take time to set up. And that is so many steps. And we probably don't have time to go into all of them, but that starts with where you're going. So investing the time to figure out where there are coyotes, number one, where they're going to be when you're calling them, where's the wind going, and do you have cover? Add to that, and I think most hunters do this well, but I've been surprised as I've seen some things, just the element of getting to your freaking spot without making a ton of noise.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to discredit the sounds that we play, but I think as we've had people hunt with us, I believe some are surprised the effort and energy that goes into all those other steps. And I believe those are likely what put us in a position to kill more coyotes.
Yeah, I think that's really, really wise because a lot of times I think it's easy with predator hunting to think, oh, well, I've got this electronic deal I'm going to throw out here and they're going to hear me and come to me. And so you miss exactly what you're talking about, the sneaking in, the right setup, the right wind, because you sort of overplay the sound bringing them to you. So no, I think that's really, really wise. Now, one thing, Ken, you said that I would love to unpack. I think this is one big mistake that I catch myself making. You talked about working up on the volume, right? I think I have a bad habit of like, okay, bam, I'm in this area. They got to be away from me. I'm gonna like rip the sound, right? And so when you're working your volume up, I mean, how quiet? And of course, we all shoot. I've got bad ears. I don't know
Yeah.
half the rodent squeaks. I'm like, man, is that even on?
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. I was like, man, is it working here? So what volume do you start at relative to how high do you end?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the softest that I start usually on the Lucky Duck, I believe the top volume is 32. I usually don't start below about 16. I might start a little below that because we've had several stands where we sat down and started calling, and within seconds, we had a coyote responding. So they had to have been very close. Would they have still come in if I started blaring it at full on 32? I don't know, but it feels like it's less of a shock to them if I started soft. And that's just my philosophy. I know that not everyone agrees with that. So depending on the stand, most of the time I'm starting a little softer. And then if nothing's coming out initially, then I'll work it up. And a lot of times these days I'm going to full volume by the time I'm even before I'm done with my first sound, which is, like I said, it's about 3 minutes. Usually.
Cool. So starting about 50% volume and working it up over the first 3 minutes and then moving kind of there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good
Sometimes
approach.
as I transition from sound to sound, I might like fade down and then fade back up on the new sound.
Yeah.
Something like that. But
It's also interesting what you're talking about in terms of vocals because I feel like, and I'm going to say something that may frustrate some people, but I'm going to say it anyway, right? I've had a similar batting average that you're talking about with vocals. It's just not been like I'll hear them respond. I may hear them even challenge back and be really close, but not actually have them come in. So like transitioning them from responding to actually taking an action has been hard for me with vocals. Although I feel like the more content that I'm seeing put out or more articles or more people talking about it, it's like the hot thing right now is talking about coyote vocals, right? And so it's almost like a badge. I feel like when I go places, it's almost like a badge of honor where it's like, oh, I call them in using vocals, right? And it's interesting to hear you say that because I kind of have the same approach. It's like, meh. It almost makes me feel good at the end. I'm like, man, I didn't call anything in, but dang it, I heard them. So we're close.
Yeah.
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 I have a little more insight in that. Some of what we do is driven by us wanting to kill coyotes, but a lot of it is driven by us wanting to create content. And so I think the way that the animals respond when they're coming in to prey makes for really neat content. Now, occasionally, depending on time of year and so many different factors, you might trigger one to come in really aggressively to like a fight. But historically, something that's not threatening, like a howl or a mating sound, doesn't necessarily get the response in the coyote that we're looking for.
Mm.
I want it in my lap. I want the coyote so close that the person watching it smells their TV screen to see if it smells like stinky dog. Like I want that. I want him to look into his eyes, into his soul. And so to do that, these guys have mastered the art of reading the body language and playing the game with these coyotes. So from the first visual that we have on the coyote till we take the shot, that's not always a long period of time, but sometimes it is. And these guys have gotten so good on the call, they know just when to kill it, just when to turn it down, to get him to come into camera range and keep him in that sweet spot so we can capture even 4 or 5 more seconds of content. And I believe that's one thing that sets us apart a little bit from some of the other content on the internet is a little bit longer, a little bit closer, a little more personal, and all of that makes an experience that's very similar to the experience that we have, and that's the goal that we have in mind. And so there may be a lot of guys who can say, "Hey, look, I've killed way more on vocals," and they may be right. But man, while this continues to work for us on Prey and we're getting the results we want, it's really hard to convince me to go to a different route.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I want to pivot a little bit here. You mentioned camera range. What is camera range for DC?
Man, we got stuff out there at a couple hundred yards, but is that cool to watch? I mean, I will tell you this: most of our shots are under 100.
Yeah.
We've got shots inside 20. I would say the sweet spot for me is somewhere in that 70 to 50 when we're killing it. Um, the equipment we have certainly can get a little better footage out further, but um, I would say the majority of the content we get that people like that gets the right responses on is 150 on into 50, but
Yeah.
most of it's under 100. And it, man, when it for someone like me who's very anxious on the trigger, it is so freaking difficult to sit and watch a coyote come in and have your son in the walkie-talkie in your ear saying, "Don't shoot, let him come. He's still coming. Wait, wait, wait." And I'm like, I'm either gonna jump out of my skin or I'm gonna pull the trigger. Which do you want? You got to pick one.
A lot of
So
it's dictated by the terrain, and probably most of the places we hunt, we can't see past 200 or 300
Oh,
yards.
wow.
I love it when we can get one coming in. If we had one a few months back where I think we saw him 800 yards out or more, a pair coming in, and I love it when you can get long time footage of the coyotes coming in, coming in, and coming in. As hard as it is to
Yeah.
wait, but if we could do that every time, I'd do it because the more time we get them on film, the better. But the terrain, we usually can't see past 200 yards in most of our stands.
Well,
So,
and I'm gonna asking
wait.
with that. I don't want to I don't want you to have to give away any trade secrets on your camera gear and stuff because you've always got a corner there somewhere. But talk a little bit like it's different setting and the hunts that I've went on for people who are filming a coyote TV show versus like what I'm doing to go kill a coyote. Like talk about the setup because you've got 3 guys and you've got a camera. Everybody's got to move and you got to communicate in a weird setup. What is your tradition? If you're like the average setup is, I'm sitting here with the call, he's sitting here with this. This is how the camera set up around us. How do y'all approach that?
that's probably you,
Yeah.
Ken. You're the master
Yeah.
of this.
A lot of it's dictated by the terrain again, but I would say a kind of a generic version is the camera, well, Cam specifically is kind of like the director on a movie set. He knows where the camera should be for the best lighting, and he's also an excellent skilled hunter. He knows where they're going to be, and I'm never going to bet against him on where he thinks they're going to come from because most of the time when they come in, he just knew it. But so we set up the camera as the priority, and then if we have 2 shooters, which sometimes we don't, but when we do, then usually we're either one is with the camera or or maybe we're on either side of them, just depending on what lanes we need to cover to be able to get any coyote that might come within camera. So, uh, it varies stand by stand, but that's kind of a generic setup.
And so
We're
you,
trying to show a little bit more of that in our more recent content, where
Mhm.
we'll set one camera up on a shooter
Yeah.
to give some perspective of that. And then one other thing that I'll mention that's really slick, that we have Cameron's a lefty, shoots left-handed. And so it's nice when you have that, because he can cover that right side. So when we can't do that, there's a lot of pre-calling communication that happens, oftentimes non-verbally, pointing, things like this, where sometimes Ken and I will set up on opposite ends, and we'll kind of do a cross where he's covering one side and I'm covering the other. And that's just based off the cover, I should say, the concealment that we have. So depending on the shape of the bushes that we're in, sometimes we'll cross, but usually we make sure someone's on the camera, or on the call, excuse me, over the call and covering left, and then someone's covering that other space. But yeah, that's part of what I was referring to earlier on that pre-stand setup is important. Now, thankfully, we've done this enough times together that we can walk out to a stand and I can guess with about 70% accuracy where Ken's going to sit. I know where Cam's going to sit. And I'm just happy to be there. So I'm taking whatever's left over.
second, the third string there. Well, and that's
Yeah.
was interesting. You mentioned communication back and forth, and I was thinking, a lot of times we may have like a lapel mic, and the cameraman's got headsets, but how is the cameraman communicating back to you in y'all's setup?
Yeah. I would say that's a work in
That's the
process.
tough part.
We yeah, we have some things that we've used that have worked well, but nothing that I think is dialed to where we want it
Mm.
yet. So any of you top tier communication people out there hearing this, call me, let's talk. But normally what ends up happening is we'll wear a headset or an earpiece that's basically just a walkie-talkie system. And as Ken alluded to earlier, the cameraman has the say. And so, even if it's literally begging you to kill it, if it's behind a bush or it's not in focus, if you listen real close on our videos, you might hear Cameron saying no, 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 or red, 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 and he'll say green or take them. And so, we definitely have two-way radios. We've tried a few different things that do work, but we've found that communication to be critical. It also helps when there's doubles. So if you listen to some real close to some of the videos, you can hear I'm on the lead one. And we have a general rule that you take, if Ken's the furthest to the right and I'm the furthest to the left, and they come in from the left to the right, he's going to take the front, I'm going to take the back. But we do communicate back and forth on that. And so the headsets help there too, because
Mm.
I mean, it's always cool to kill one coyote, but when you get a double come in or like a triple, and we've had some even north of that, um, when you can knock down two like you did the other day, like that feeling isn't double awesome. It's like 14 times awesome.
I love
Yeah.
it. All right, so I'm going to ask. I got a couple things here. One, I want to know, like when I was looking at your Instagram specifically, there is a video, and it's really cool. This coyote's kind of facing the camera, but he's got a really unique look on his face, and he's very low in this kind of piece of brush. And then, man, y'all just cap him, and the reaction was like perfect, right? All framed up nice, really close in your face, and it was neat just to see how that coyote was acting. So I want to understand. So two questions. I want to know what was happening on that hunt that coyote was acting like that, and then two, give me like what's one of your favorite hunts, each of you. Like, hey, the most memorable,
Oh,
you know. But I want to know
Ken,
first
that
off, like
first
what
question's
was
for
that
you
one
though.
doing?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't remember an exact. I remember that stand vividly, but I don't remember any factors that would have made him act like that. He came in and for some reason he felt like he needed to mad dog that call, like he was mad at it. He had some kind of vendetta against the call. I don't know if he thought another coyote was around and he had to act tough. He came in there and he looked like he was mad
It's crazy.
and made for great content, and just happened to be lined up in a great spot where I had a lane where I could shoot him. And that's one of the memorable ones to me as far as like what you get to see from the coyote's behavior and body language. I love that. That was great because so many times it's more their body language is more neutral or like curious, where that one was mad. He was
So how far was he from you when you shot? Because man, that is like in your face film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that exact distance because we try to keep track every kill and put the range down in our spreadsheet. I think that one was under 100 yards for
Mm.
sure. It was probably like around 70 yards, 60 to 70 yards if I remember right. And he wasn't looking at me, but he was looking with he had the stink eye looking at something.
That was pretty.
Oh,
That was a really neat film. All right, Scott. What
yeah.
about you?
So I have a lot of favorite ones that I love, but the one I'll tell just because it's kind of a funny story, and I don't mind clowning on myself a little bit. We had a day, me and Cameron, a little over a year ago, where we were calling in coyotes left and right, and I found about every opportunity not to kill them, and I was frustrated. Like frustrated is the kind way of saying it. And it was probably time to go home, but Cameron had seen something on the map that he really liked. He was just confident was a bowl, and we needed to go over there. So I reluctantly went, and it wasn't a bowl at all. It was just this big plateau with no cover. And I'm like, this sucks. Let's just go. I'm hungry. I want a soda. Like, let's get out of here. But we were already there. So we decided to hunt it. And we get on the back edge of this. I got nothing to hide in out of these big fissures. So I'm like all fat and sweaty in this fissure, tucked in, hitting the call. And we called in a pair of coyotes almost immediately. And I smoked the first one, raggedy old, nasty looking coyotes too. I put the first one out of his misery. And then I was shooting some ammo that was reloaded
Mm.
and it hung up. And so Cameron's like working the call, like, dude, shoot this other coyote. Well, I'm trying to rack around. Something stuck. I'm keeping my eyes on these coyotes. I drop my magazine out of the bottom of the gun. When it hits, it goes in the dirt. Rounds start, oh, flies are getting on me. Rounds are going all over the place. I'm picking up rounds, trying to load them one at a time in my gun because I can't find the magazine in the dirt. I'm reaching in my backpack to get it. Shoot the second. I think we ended up shooting four of at least 6 or 7 coyotes that came in on that stand. But it was such a comedy of like rookie mistakes and errors on my part that like I was so this roller coaster of emotions. And I will say this, that roller coaster of emotions is absolutely coyote hunting. It is 100% coyote hunting. If you think we just ride this all the time, you're freaking crazy. So that roller coaster was so intense to when we were finally done with the stand and I realized we had stacked up all 4 of those coyotes. The swing from like being mad at myself and angry and frustrated to holy crap, did that just happen? Was so wild that I'll never forget it, dude. I was shaking, I was laughing, and we get some heat for that sometimes. Like people, why are you laughing? I can't
Mm.
explain it. It's just it's fun,
There's a
dude.
lot.
We don't take pleasure in like the demise of the coyote. We're not demonic. We don't want it to suffer, but there's a it's so fun and entertaining for us. And then at the end when it's done, like a lot of times I just can't help but laugh. So that stand, I will never forget it. It may not be my favorite, but daggum, it's right up there near the top.
That's cool. All right, I want to ask one. This kind of be probably the last key question I ask before we see what you guys got coming next. But you know, from a content producer perspective in coyotes in Arizona, what is your, I mean, opinion without making too many people mad on predator calling contest? Because I mean,
You
it's
want to go, Cam?
What was the rest of it, Derek?
well,
I want to hear the full
because what's
question.
interesting is, I mean, I like personally, I have some opinions. Like we sponsor some of the like the biggest one, and I think it's so cool to see so many people out. And they do such a good job of it. But like I think my personal opinion is not so much like the coyote contest. I don't think I have an issue with that as much as I have an issue with some of the tactics that are in it. Right, like trolling bothers me a little bit because you educate a lot of coyotes. But maybe if it's your own property, it's okay. And then I love thermals, but I almost think that they're starting to mess up the like quality of calling. And so, I asked that question because I mean, I think that it's, we're all in the predator community just in a different way. And so just like to hear different people's opinions on, kind of what you think about it.
Yeah, I think probably in most ways, you and I feel the same about it. I don't have a problem with the competition. We're never going to run out of coyotes. They are not ever going to be an endangered species. They're everywhere. Heck, I wish we could have a competition in my neighborhood because we see as many coyotes walking down the street in town as we do out calling them stand. So I don't have a problem with that as long as people are hunting ethically and safely. Competition is fine. I have noticed, and there may be a correlation, but I have noticed that it feels like a lot more coyotes are educated, and I'm not saying I didn't educate some of them myself because I know I have, but I feel like there's a lot more of them that are educated. Um, and here in Arizona, we can't do thermal, but I think probably in other parts of the country, when you can do a lot of thermal hunting, that may be part of it. And I think if people are depending on how they're hunting, they might be educating coyotes that they didn't need to educate. And I want everybody to have success in their hunting. So,
Yeah.
if you invited me to be in a competition, a contest, I might do it. I do it more for the fun of it than I'm not trying to prove I can kill more than anybody else because I know there's guys that are way better at it than me. Guys can shoot better than me. I'm doing it because I love doing it, and I'm doing it with my brother and my nephew, and we're having a blast doing it. And I'm so grateful that we can now record some of these experiences so that I can relive them and I can share them with friends.
Well, I think you nailed it. Like the competition, I mean, I do it when I get an opportunity to. It's like the way I would describe it. It's like duck hunting in the sense that you have the camaraderie element with your friends and the high rack at night and the all those things that go with it that make it the individual experience awesome, right? And then I love, like, I mean, it's been, we grew up, my family raised sheep and goats, and so it was part of shooting coyotes was just part of how you did it, right? And I wish we'd have had thermals back then, would have been a lot more effective. But I see so much content, and we've done some stuff with Outdoor Live testing thermal. Man, some of these new thermals and with some of the really good rifles, it's becoming a shooting contest, which is fine, I think, but it stirs something weird in me. I'm like, well, it's not a calling like you smoked him at 400, which is awesome. But I wish you'd have shot him at 50, called him in, And so it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think I agree with both of you. The only other thing I would add to it is, and I first should be clear in my position, I support it if that's what you love to do. I think it's great, and we welcome you in as if I have a say, but I consider you my brother, right? I welcome you into the community. The only thing I would say a potential hazard there is if you're in the coyote hunting contest because you're trying to compare yourself to other hunters for some level of like self-satisfaction, I would just tell you that's an empty chase. I would just tell you that's not going to lead to your happiness, and it's not going to prove anything. But if you want to come hunt coyotes because you're looking to have a blast and you want to hang out with your buddies, to improve your hunting skills, to challenge yourself, and to do something that does make a positive impact, like there's so much more real joy in that than being able to show off a buckle or say you won something. One thing that bugs me quite a bit about the hunting community in general is sometimes people get a little jaded with like a comparison thing to other hunters. And so maybe I'll make it my new life mission to like squash that, and let's compare ourselves to where we were a year ago. And let's use that competitive nature that we have so that we're not trying to drag other people down or flex on folks. There's just a lot of that happens in hunting that takes some of the sweetness out for me. And so I wish we could get rid of it. I know it'll never happen, but that is a little fear I have with some of these contests. It's like, oh, well, I won a contest, so like I'm the best, right? No, here's the deal. I don't care how good you are. You can learn from someone else. And there's so many people that are so smart. Like Don't be so worried about being better than him. Maybe take a second to learn from him, because that dude will teach you something. You'll kill 5 more coyotes next
Oh,
year.
dude, I know. I've said multiple times that like it is amazing to me. Like I said, West Texas Big Bobcat Contest. The guys that run it, it's amazing. I love watching it. We sponsor it, the whole thing. I just, I've told Jeremy this. I just want to find the guy that their team is doing, 50 coyotes a night. I just want to ride with them because I'm like, that is a lot of shooting in a very short amount of time, and I just want to see how it happens, right? Because it feels that's not been my experience, where I hunt coyotes and stuff, and so I'm like, man, I want to live it once and then and get a different perspective on it, but. Well, man,
Yeah.
one thing we like to do in our podcast, obviously we're called On the Horizon. So, when you think about what's on y'all's horizon, you know, give us a little bit of what's coming up next with you guys. I'll let you both answer that question from where's this going? What do we need to do? And at the same time, like, where can people find you?
Yeah. You or me, Scott? You want to lead or me?
I'll go first. I'll give the boring answer. My role within DC Predator has a lot more to do with the partner relations and the business end. And so that answer for me really, the dream that we had when we started this is that this could turn into something that we do full time.
Oh, cool.
I would love to get to the point where we're generating enough interest online to where this could be a full time job, certainly for Cameron and maybe for Ken too, um, because we could do so much more if we didn't have these stupid day jobs. And so I dream of that, and I know that's a big dream, but it can happen. And so we're trying to build something now that's a foundation that will allow us to do that. And boy, if that ever happened, like I probably just die immediately, go to heaven. But so that's what it is for me, is to get to the next layer or level, and hopefully get to the point where DC can be a full time gig and not just a Saturday thing.
That's cool.
That's a great answer, man. It's tough to add to that. I will say that we have been blessed to have some partnerships with a few people along the way that have helped us out to have grow it from its infancy to what it is now. And I'm not saying that it's big, but we feel really fortunate and grateful to all the people that have helped us along the way. We love meeting people and talking to people that love what we love to do. And yeah, I agree with Scott. It would be my dream that my 9 to 5 is all related to hunting coyotes and sharing that with other people. I love going out with these guys. I'm having a blast doing it. I think it's a good positive thing that we're doing as well. I don't know how I could add any more to what Scott said. That's my dream too. And
That's awesome.
we really appreciate everybody that has supported us in every way. People that are watching our videos and comment, even the people that are mean in the comments. Thanks for watching.
Oh, hey, some of those are the best, right? Some of those are the best, man. We all get them, and I always love, you post something and you're waiting, right? Because that same guy, here he comes. I love it, man. Well, guys, I appreciate you being on the podcast so much, and guys, thanks for watching this episode of On the Horizon. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you later.